and understanding a bit more about the Azure file sync. So we're going to be splitting this one up into two parts. And today we will be focusing on an introduction to the Azure file sync service. We're going to look at some of the use cases. So why would we use this? Where is it impactful? And what are some of the challenges it solves? And then, of course, we're going to do beginning deployment of the file sync on a standalone server. Our next session will cover the security and access to the file shares, to the file sync service on Azure. So the first thing that we think about when we think about Azure file shares is that we have the capabilities of our SMB or NTFS file shares on premises that is moved to the cloud. So it's in many cases very similar. They use the same protocols, they use the same file system. They both can be monitored and given access by managing role-based access controller identities that have access to certain files or folders within the shares. So when we have an on-premises file share and we have an Azure file share, what the intersect is between these two is that when we connect them, we can have that central management of your files that are on premises in Azure. And so what happens is that you will have on-premises server, the data that you have, the data and the files on your file share on premises are then replicated to Azure. And of course, then what is left on your machine is cached data that you can access as if it was natively on your file server there in the office or at your location, but it is being stored in Azure. So it syncs the local files that you have to Azure and you can centrally manage them there. You can centrally manage the access. You can manipulate the files there. You have the local file access as if it was on your premises or in your file on your disk in your file share on premises for your cloud stored data. And of course, because it is in the cloud, you have that unlimited. Well, there is a cap, but you have that that flexibility when it comes to storing data in your file shares in Azure. Off the top of our head, based off of what we just went through, anyone wants to volunteer on when or what kind of possible challenge they see a file sync could solve? When would you want to use a file sync? Any takers? Suresh, hand up.
Yeah, you want to use a file sync if you want to have an up-to-date copy of a file or document as a sort of backup repository.
Absolutely, that is absolutely correct. So yeah, that is one of the reasons we'd want to use that as a backup and disaster recovery kind of scenario. So your data is actually copied into the cloud, so it has that redundancy there built into that. So that is one of them, of course. Thank you, Suresh. When we're looking at use cases for this, we want to optimize our on-premises storage. Two things. One, storage and physical infrastructure will break, can break, will break. It happens all the time, and that is why we are here, right? But of course, we also know that after a while, you can run out of storage. You'll have storage issues and so on that your customers may encounter, and as such, you want to be able to give your customers the on-tap storage at reduced costs, or being able to optimize it in a way that they can utilize whatever storage is on premises, but also get the cloud scale for additional storage as well. So they don't have to be purchasing physical hardware. They have the dynamic expansion of the file shares, so they can just continue to, as their data grows, they can continue to put more data in the cloud. So you have what is known as file tiering, where that is in your storage account, you'll have a hot tier, a cool tier, and those will be associated with how much you are accessing the files. So with file tiering in Azure, it will give you the most used files being cached locally on your file share, so that you can have access to those at a faster pace. So you have file tiering, you have storage reduction costs, you have that redundancy as well that Suresh mentioned. So ensuring that you have redundancy and disaster recovery for your environment. So for your files, they have a copy that is in the cloud. They have backup in the cloud as well, because you can back up the file share. And of course, you have the geo redundancy and other redundancy types for your storage accounts themselves. And so you have multiple copies of your data, and you can ensure that you have that all-around redundancy for your environment. And of course, too, if for some strange and sad reason that we all experience, our drives decide to die, or our physical machine decides to die, or something on premises decides to die, you have those files in Azure, and of course you can have quick file recovery from there. You also have centralizing your file access and management. So you can consolidate several different file servers in this file sync for simplified management. You can provide a consistent file across remote offices and branch locations. So you can have that one particular file in the cloud. You can have the overwriting of the file when when persons are editing. You can co-edit like that, so you don't have any clashes or errors when it comes to saving that file. And of course, you can then spread the access to your files on a global scale. So if you have different branch offices, this is something that you might want to consider for your customers. And then also we have enabling hybrid cloud. My favorite, our favorite, should all be everybody's favorite. So when you have your enabling hybrid cloud scenarios, one, we can use this as a tool to actually transition from our on-prem storage or file services to full cloud file services at over time. You can leverage the cloud scale, so without fully having to migrate all of the files off-prem, because we have come across the cases where we know that our customers, they don't want to move everything off-prem. They're very finicky about moving all of their data. Maybe they have regulations or compliance reasons to not move off all of their data, so they can choose what data stays and what data goes off premises, and support, of course, their compliance with who needs to keep certain data on premises while still being able to benefit from the cloud. So of course, we're going to go through some key concepts. Remember these. If you remember these, we'll be good to go. You might get a prize. Not saying yes, not saying no, but just maybe. All right, so cloud tiering, as we mentioned before, is a feature of the file sync that enables the organizations to store files while they're still accessing them as if they were locally on the server. So this is particularly useful when you have to manage your on-premise storage space. And really what it does is moving files that are not very frequently accessed. So remember I had spoken about the hot tier and the cold tier. So cold data or cold tier from your on-premises storage to Azure. So it's kind of acting as an archive of sorts. So this frees up your storage on premises, and for the hot data that is being accessed frequently, those will be locally cached to your on-premises file server. And then we have what is known as proactive recall, which is a feature that's designed to assist or improve the user experience by ensuring that the key files that are being used are available locally. And it's basically tied into the cloud tiering. You have a set of files that require quick access, you need low latency, etc. And so the proactive recall will ensure that those files are available from Azure before they are requested by the user. And we'll be going through this more in depth next session, but Azure File Sync is secured on several different layers. So of course, for the first part, we need to ensure that we are secured in transit and at rest. So our data, when it's moving between your on-premises environment and Azure, it is encrypted. And of course, while it is sitting in a storage account in Azure, your data is always encrypted. You can utilize Entra ID, identity and access management, for access control. So you can determine who has access to specific file shares, specific folders, specific files. You can also have role-based access control that will determine who can manipulate your file shares and the files and folders within them. And of course, you can use conditional access policies to restrict access based on some conditions. So for example, for those of us who do Microsoft 365, conditional access policies, you can restrict based on, say, location, your device location, if you have a device compliance. So maybe you only want iPhones to be able to access your environment, you can do that. Or you have, based on their risk levels, you can allow from only corporate joint devices, or you can also ensure that multi-factor authentication might be necessary to access the file shares. So before we get to trivia, we are going to take a look now into our environment and get our file sync running. So the first thing we want to do is to ensure that we have a storage account. We're going to use the storage account Tech Thursdays, which I have already created. And there we're going to go to the file services. So I'll create a new file share and we'll call this TechSol file share 2. We're going to skip the backup for right now, but this is what I was mentioning before. So you can back up the file shares from accidental deletion or modification. So you have a copy of your file share or a backup of your file share there. So you have that added redundancy for your environment. And so we can just go to review and create, and we have created a file share that we're going to use for this. So we can go here and browse. We see it's a new file share. We haven't done anything to this as yet. And so let's add a directory. We're gonna call this IT directory. Can I spell? Oh my. I promise, guys, I can spell. Promise. All right, let's upload a random file. To our co-op guidebook. Let's upload that. So we have a file here in our file share in our directory in our tech solutions file share 2. The next thing we want to do is to create a file sync, Azure file sync. Oh no. Azure file sync. When we go to the marketplace, it brings us to the wizard to create this. We're going to use our Technical Thursdays resource group, and we're going to provide the sync service storage name. So this is where we're going to have all of our sync groups. Our synchronization for our file shares will be underneath this sync service. So we're going to call this TechSol Sync Service 1. For now, and ease of use, we're going to do all networks so that we can access it quickly. But in the event of security, we want to use private endpoints, and private endpoints allow you to have your resources connect to your storage account, well, privately, but not over the public internet. We're going to leave it at the default for now, and we're going to put our tags just so we keep track. We're going to create our file sync. We go to resource, so we'll see here that we have sync groups, we have no sync groups, and we have no registered servers. So let's go into these first. So the first thing we have to create under our storage sync service is a sync group. A sync group is where all of the synchronized servers will be. So it's basically a container for all of your endpoints that will be synchronized. So let us create our sync group, Tech Solutions, sync group 1. It's going to ask for what subscription you want to put it in. We only have one, and so we're keeping that. And of course, we can select our storage accounts. We're going to go with the Tech Thursday storage account. And then underneath, you'll see the storage, the file shares that are under that storage account. Just created this. So we're going to select the Tech Solutions file share 2, and we're going to create our sync group. So under here, we see the file share that is going to be synced with the endpoints, which is the servers that we want to sync with this file share. And so it's just showing us that, hey, under this sync group, under this container, we have this file share connected to X, Y, and Z servers. So it's provisioning, and we will, under this storage account, this is the file share that we're using. So let's take a look at this. A server endpoint is an entire volume or set of folders of a volume that is registered to the portal here from a server location. So in order to do this, our servers has to be registered. So we're gonna have to go and do that. And of course, a specific location can only sync with one sync group. So we can't sync drive D/data with multiple sync groups. So if we're going to specify drive D/data, it's going to be associated to this sync group, and we can't put it in, for example, the previous sync group that I had there. So we don't have any registered servers yet, as you can see here. And so we are going to cancel this for now, and we are going to add our server. We are going to add our server by going to registered servers. So as we see here, no items to display as yet. And so we will have to, one, download the file sync agent that is going to be on the server that we want to sync. And then after the install, we will see that pop up here. So you can take us to that page. I'll just show you what the page looks like. I have it pre-downloaded already, but just for you to see, you have several files, MSI files here that are associated to the different operating systems. So 2012 R2 and 2016 will only work for 2012 R2 and 2016. For 2019, it will only work for 2019. Storage sync agent 2022 will work for 2022 and possibly 2019. So they're backwards compatible one version. We're going to do 2019 because that is the server version I have. And so that would download. It's going to download on my local PC here, but let us go to the server. So as you can see, I have my sync agent for Windows Server 2019 downloaded. I will run that to install, and the wizard comes up. Once we are here, we'll click through the wizard. So we accept the licensing terms agreement. Please read that. Here, read that, guys. Make sure you read that. And then we see where it is going to be stored. We can change this if necessary. It is not, so we will continue. If you have proxy settings for accessing the internet on your machine, here's the place to modify those settings. And if not, we're going to go through the default. The thing with this is that in previous versions, the storage sync agent would have to be uninstalled and reinstalled when you need to update it. But now Microsoft is pushing the updates automatically, so you can utilize the Microsoft update. And of course, you can also select here to automatically update it when new versions become available. So they're doing this on Patch Tuesdays. And we will install our storage sync agent. So we finish here and exit the wizard. And then we will see our Azure File Sync agent update. We can this is already up to date. So we will click on OK. Our pop-up will come and we are able to now register our server. So this server is going to be with Azure Cloud. Of course, we're not using Azure China or Azure US Government. It will be Azure Cloud. You sign in using the credentials here. Let us close this. Just a second. So let's sign in. Let's close that. It should not be coming up as an Internet Explorer browser. Hey. Oh, oh dear. There we go. So we are now logging in with the credentials that we are using for the tenant that we were just in. And now we get to select our subscription, the resource group that we are using, which is Technical Thursdays, and our Tech Solution Sync service. We are going to register this server to that. Once the server is registered, we should be able to see this in the portal. So let us go and take a look. So we're going to go back to our portal and we're going to refresh. And now we are seeing Tech Solutions File Server 2, Windows Server 2019 that we just registered to our sync service. So now when we go to sync group, we will see that we can add our server endpoint. So we come back here, we go to registered server. We can now see the server that we just registered to the sync service. We can specify a path. And so let us create one to use for this session. So we go to this PC. Let's go here. Let's create a new folder. Let's call it finance. Inside of finance, we're going to create a new document. Finance doc. Inside of finance doc, this is our finance document. Save that. Close it. And so we have our file and our folder. And we are going to go. Sorry, let's go back to there. We're going to copy this path. And we're going to go back. So files from the server path have been brought via data box. We don't need to look at this. Data boxes for a very large amounts of files. And we can see here that we have our cloud tiering now available to manipulate. So we can disable cloud tiering, but if we enable it, you will have two policies that you can utilize: the volume free space policy. And what this does is ensure that there is always the specified percentage of free data on your file server, on your physical file server or your on-prem file server. So for example, if the file server that we just saw, we must always have 60% of that space free. The data that is being utilized is going to be on the server, and it should not exceed 40%. So whatever is being used most will be there, and it will not exceed 40%. Everything else will be in the cloud, and you will just have a local cache of the 40% of data. Then, of course, you have a date policy, and this will only cache files that were accessed or modified within a specific amount of days. So we can put for the last 12 days, how many days you want, only those will be there. We're going to leave these on the default for now, and we're going to create our server endpoint. This is going to take a couple minutes. But soon we should be seeing our server endpoint pop up. There we go. So it is waiting for an upload. So when this is uploaded, we will see. All right. While we wait on this, let us go to the trivia. All right, guys, trivia question. Who will win today's prize? Give.
They're timid today.
Oh, sorry?
They're timid today.
They're teaming today?
No, they timid.
Oh,
Like,
they're timid today. Oh,
yeah.
no man, they can't be timid today. We have prizes to give out. All right. So the
So I'm
question
sorry.
is, because
Was it trivia question? Who's gonna win the prize?
who, who is going to win the prize for today's trivia? Let me
Yeah,
see.
I think I'll answer me. Let's go.
Okay, let me give the question because I put the question and the answer on the same page. I don't know why I did that. So let me talk out the question, guys. Give me, and I'll put the stakes up, two of the prerequisite components required to create the file sync.
I can go.
Who's going?
Um,
Maria, who's
Orion.
going? Oh,
Oh, I
Orion,
need to put up
hi.
my hand. Sorry, sorry. I need to put up my hand. Sorry about that.
Okay,
It's
okay, go
okay.
ahead.
I can't see it up. Okay, the first thing you need is a storage account from Azure,
Mm-hmm.
and you need the agent, storage sync agent.
Okay, okay, all right. So you have gotten it right. You need a storage sync agent, and you need a storage account and a file share. You also need your server on premises. And well, you said the sync agent, but there's also the storage sync service that needs to be set up as well. So the sync agent and a file share. You also need your server on premises and the storage sync service to be set up. So Aureen has drum roll today for our giveaway. Maria, we have Aureen on today's mark for the prize. See Maria for your goodies.
Got it.
All righty. So let us get back to from our commercial break. Let's see. We're still pending here. No, thank you. So we're waiting on our initial upload. So while we do that, let me give you an idea of what this will look like. In our storage sync services, let us go to the service sync. We'll go to our sync groups. And let's check the sync group that was previously created. So when the sync is complete, you will see that the uploads to cloud were completed. You will see the health status will be healthy, and it will show you what was the, well, when the download to server was completed. So the files that are in your file share on Azure will be synced to your on-premises depending on if you want that to occur. And of course, those that are in the server path that you had specified will be synced to Azure. So let's take a look at this. We see here our sync status when it was completed. You see if there were any errors. And let me show you in this sync group, the file share was Tech Thursdays that was used. You will see the information on that. Let me go to the file share itself. So let's go to our storage accounts, go to Tech Thursdays, and our file service. Let us browse. And for, I will log into that machine to show you. But for the file folders that are here, were the ones that were synced from the server that was previously attached to this file share. Let me see if I can log into that one. So as we have here, you'll see TextSol, server TextSol that was attached to this file. Let me just confirm this. Let's go back to our storage sync service. So we see serve sync. We see our registered servers was TextSol. So we are here logged into TextSol. You can see it's online. You will see here that the path we are at is Windows, so C drive/logs. And of course, let's go back to our storage. Tech Thursdays, our file service. Go into our file service, and when we browse, we can see that the files that are here that were connected to this file sync have been copied over to our file share here. So it syncs all of our files within the folder that within the drive that we specified, or the drive path that we specified, and we have them available in Azure and on premises. So let's see if our Tech Solutions file service 2 has come up. Okay, here we are. It has propagated. And as we see, remember we had created IT directory and we had uploaded partner incentives co-op guide. And so that has propagated to our file share here. And so if we go back now to our file sync, back to TextSol, you will see that it is now healthy. Our registered servers are online. And we'll see that our sync group has successfully been completed uploading to cloud, and it is healthy. And with that, we have deployed our file sync service, and we can now access our files through our file share on premises. And of course, it is also available in Azure. And so, of course, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, nothing tough, nothing hard, and something that we can all see some value for customers who may have wanted to use these file share services in Azure. I see a hand. Yes, Suresh, your hand is up.
Yes, I have questions. Are you taking questions now?
Of course, taking questions.
Okay, so I get the file sync, and I know that one of the benefits of OneDrive and SharePoint would be version history. And I was wondering if the file sync supports any sort of version history.
Version history, not necessarily. It works just like our general file share on premises. So it's not necessarily version history. I think that's a capability that the cloud models of file storage with OneDrive and so has given over like a general file share that we've been used to and been using.
Okay, and can you access the files from either side, or is it that it has to be synced to the on-premise server with the agent, and then the local users access the server, or can they also direct access the sync files in the Azure storage?
Yes, they can directly access it from Azure, and they can access it from the file server on premises.
Okay, I may have missed it, but did you show access from the Azure side of it?
No, so our next session is going to go through the access and the security of the file services here. We are a bit out of time for today, so that will be in our next session.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yes, I have questions. Sorry, me
Go
again.
ahead. Go ahead.
I have questions about the hot tier, the cold tier, and the proactive recall. So the hot tier, cold tier is primarily based on the number of days that you set. Is that correct?
All right, so the hot tier and cold tier is based on access. So in the back end, there's basically kind of like a heat map that's created for the file. So based on how frequently they're accessed and so on, they will be classified as hot tier or cold tier. But those that are less frequently accessed will be based on what you have set up in the cloud tiering side, whether it's by days or it is by what was the other one? Whether it is by the amount of days that is accessed or it is by the amount of free space that's supposed to be there. It will determine what's frequently accessed and what is not. And of course, it will cache locally based off of what is frequently used, and cache in Azure, or keep in Azure, store in Azure rather, what is infrequently utilized.
Okay, so the hot and cold tier is done automatically.
Yes.
All right. And apart from that hot and cold tier and that heat map, if something isn't accessed, you can also set it to save local storage by moving things to the Azure if they haven't been accessed in a certain number of days.
Yes.
Okay. And if the hot and cold tier is done automatically, I don't know if you could just go over the proactive recall. I missed a bit of that slide or the conversation on that regarding the locally cached files.
Okay. So with the proactive recall, right? It is basically a way that the files that are replicated, you'll have replication both ways for the Azure file sync. So you can actually replicate from Azure down to your on-premises and vice versa. With the proactive recalling, essentially, when you have files that are going to be utilized a lot, they're frequently utilized and so on, they are basically preemptively pulled. So they're kind of stored on premises then. To ensure that they're easily accessed, less latency, etc. when it comes to accessing those files, because they're more frequently used. So that same heat mapping and stuff that goes on in the back end will determine how proactive recall will be done, or which files it will be associated with, rather.
Okay, so it's a way that frequently accessed files that are primarily Azure stored are cached locally to improve the speed at which these files can be accessed.
Right.
Okay.
You have the right idea. You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, guys. Well, since we have no more questions, I want to thank you for coming out and having a very good interactive session today. As I said, Orion is today's winner of the prize. Maria will contact you, and guys, keep coming to the sessions. For those of you, I'm gonna put up our leaderboard next session. And for those of you who continuously are coming to our sessions, you have a special prize at the end of the series. So stay tuned for that. We'll see who is on the leaderboard next session. And of course, our next topic is going to be part 2 of this, where we show the access and security associated with the file sharing. So guys, thank you again for a very good session and have yourselves a lovely day.